This is a tutorial on not to build how to build this specific hellhound here, but how to foam sculpt and scale monsters like this. This hellhound was based on the incredible design by Miles Tevis for the movie. Can you guess it? Chronicles of Riddick, and he's made out of pink foam. Thank you, sci-fi nerds. What a great little model to base the sculpting on. It's always helpful to have a small scale model. And so took a picture and you want to blast it, but before you do, decide on the scale of your monster. You notice that the shoulders are around Diesel's hips, so I'm thinking that's a good size. I'm a little shorter than Diesel, so yeah, that'll work. Now with that information, you can now measure the toy to figure out about how many planks of foam you're going to need. So measuring the top, you can transfer that to the profile picture you have and then transfer that measurement to the model there, and then you can figure out, okay, well that's this high and I need this many planks, and then outline it. Give yourself a little wiggle room so when you're outlining your other 2-inch foam planks, have a little grace period there. And this tool was great for cutting it out a lot faster. And no, Pinks, no! You've got an idea how the front's going to look, but you need an idea of how the top's going to look. So used some clear glass here with the plastic and outlined it, took a picture of it and blasted it onto the back of it and transferred those lines. And then with the toy at the top there, you can see kind of where you need to have the legs, kind of outlined. Use yellow paint so it stood out more. And then going to PVC, decide where you need your PVC framing, if it's big enough that it needs to be supported, and also what plank you're going to be burying the PVC pipe into. The tail is attachable and detachable, so here determining how far the end part's going to stick out. This tool was fabulous for just making room for that PVC pipe to be channeled in. And for the mounting brackets, drumbled out so it fits a little looser. This is going to save you a lot of headache later on in the steps when you take it back off. And glue it in. This is using foam board glue. Get it as thin as you can, step on it to press it down, and tie it up like nobody's business. Tires are great weights. The industrial knife from Hot Wire Foam Factory is awesome. Bent that little wire thing, and that allows you to scrape away, carve away your monster pretty quickly. And see the toy in my hand? Constantly referring to that. So use yours when you're sculpting it and just keep carving away what doesn't belong. Use a Stanley Sureform shaver so it knocks down all the ridges and you start to see your monster coming to life here. And you can use scrubbies and pottery tools for the detail work. The mouth was actually cut into and pulled out using pottery tools. So that's kind of solid. If your monster has a tail or a tentacle or something like that, you can use, because you already know how long the monster is body-wise, you can use that to transfer how long the tail should be. And for this monster, the tail's going to have PVC, but it needed to be 1/2-inch PVC, so it took a 1-inch and 1/2-inch thing to make the transition, and then melted this PVC in place because it has to be curved. If your monster needs some really smooth skin, the sanding pad on the Dremel Multimax is really good for that. A regular Dremel with this grinding bit's great for detail lines. Just love this shot. Now we're in the world of scales. Reproject your image back onto your monster so you can get an idea of what size scales you're going to need. And cut those out of 2-inch foam using the blade of the hot wire knife. Just kind of cut it like you're cutting luncheon meat. You're not going to save the ends of that, but the insides make great scales. And here was a variety, teardrop kind of shape, spikes. You want a whole smorgasbord to choose from when you are applying the scales. Back spine scales are a bit of a challenge. These had to be hand carved individually and graduated in size. But love the carving knife on here. It made it a lot easier. You see the scale already done on the left side. That's the model, so I just kind of replicated that. Use foam board glue to put on all your scales. Scales actually have a pattern to it. You overlap the previous ones and you try to put it right in the center seam. For intricate like arms or muscle lines, you want to have the variety of those scales, because if it's an in cut on a muscle line, you need to go with smaller scales. This is a handy trick. If you hammer down these scales, they become flexible. And so just kind of hammer it to death, and then see my hands, I'm curling it under. Well, it's holding its shape, and that allows you to bend it around corners or have it stick up for these next scales. And there they all are. To ease the transition of scales to skin, use paper clay to make the really small ones that you couldn't make out of foam. And you could also do little bumps and dots. Paper clay was also used to coat the teeth and the claws to give it more of a solid look to it. And also when you're easing it in, you can also blend it into the skin itself so it looks like the scale grew out of the skin. If you notice on your skin you have cracks and lines, so use a Sharpie and draw out some lines, and then use this grinding Dremel bit to carve in those lines, and use a much smaller bit for tinier lines. This one was too small, cut too deep, so pick another bit. Be sure to dry lock your underside of the plywood base before painting. Used a spray gun and exterior flat paint for this. It took a total of 6 coats to finally get the good coverage. So in between, grab a flashlight and look what areas you missed and hit it again. Or worst case, grab your airbrush for those really tight areas. And when you're all done, you should get a nice sheen to it using the spray gun. It looks like scales, but still keeps the texture of the skin. When we switch over, you can see that. This is red fluorescent paint, and you can use like a plate as a shield if you don't want to, get a lot of overspray and stuff. You can also hand paint, because the teeth, the white would have shown in the red inside the mouth. Use black for shading and getting in between the teeth. And then, most importantly, use gloss. Gloss, put that anywhere where you would expect water, like in the tear area, the eyes, teeth, nose. The knees of the skin. Okay, well now we can permanently attach the mounting bases, and luckily when we spray painted you could see where the screw holes have to be. Also put in some 1/2-inch holes so you can stake off these plywood bases if you're going to be putting this out in the graveyard, and screw them into place. Well, once your monster is where it needs to be, you can then caulk and paint whatever attachments are temporarily before you can make it permanent. And we are done. Yay! So, you're probably wondering, why was I using fluorescent paint? Well, that's because this hellhound's going to go in the graveyard. And the graveyard has blue LED lights. And blue LED lights actually makes fluorescent paint fluoresce. Ha! Yay, no special UV lights. Well, hope you enjoyed this tutorial and have fun making your monster.